You ever have one of those moments when you're reading and all the books that you're reading at the same time kind of just seem to have one thing that it's talking about or one theme, or they kind of all just mesh perfectly? That just happened with me. And I'm reading 3 books, and while I've never really been the kind of person who likes to read multiple books at the same time, this channel has kind of forced me into doing it, which has kind of been great because there's just so much that I want to read, which is also a shameless plug to subscribe. This channel has like a lot of video essays, and we're just talking about Lord of the Rings, Brandon Sanderson, Harry Potter, and just a lot of other books are coming up too. But I want to talk about this theme that I just keep coming across. It's come across in all 3 of these books at the moment that I read them. But this is the theme that I keep coming across. A few weeks ago on my yearly re-listen of Harry Potter, I came across the ridiculous section, where Lupin teaches them how to defeat a bogart. And for you Harry Potter nerds, you defeat one with laughter. You have to willfully turn the object that you fear into something that you can laugh at. Then, about a week ago, I read The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I'm like midway through that. And I'm in my first ever read of that. And honestly, I think it's the greatest book that I've ever read in my entire life. Or the greatest 6 books. Or 3. It's confusing. I keep messing that up. But there's this one incredible section where in the book they are talking to Saruman. Now, Saruman is a wizard, and he's cunning. And he's essentially putting a spell on everyone else that's around. And he's attempting to convince Gandalf to join forces with him. The book description is eerie, and it's perfect and fascinating. I just want to read it. This is what it says. So great was the power that Saruman exerted in this last effort, that none that stood within hearing were unmoved. But now the spell was wholly different. They heard the gentle remonstrance of a kindly king with an erring but much loved minister. But they were shut out, listening at a door to words not meant for them. Ill-mannered children or stupid servants overhearing the elusive discourse of their elders, and wondering how it would affect their lot. Of loftier mold these 2 were made, reverend and wise. It was inevitable that they should make alliance. Gandalf would ascend into the tower to discuss deep things beyond their comprehension in the high chambers of Orthanc. The door would be closed, and they would be left outside, dismissed to await allotted work or punishment. Even in the mind of Theoden, the thought took shape like a shadow of doubt. He will betray us. He will go. We shall be lost. Then Gandalf laughed. The fantasy vanished like a puff of smoke. That is such a cool section. And I thought it was fantastic, one of the best sections in that whole chapter, but I didn't really think about all that much until I started to read the 2nd book of Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, which is The Well of Ascension. Now, in this story, Vin is remembering Kelsier and his ability to smile and laugh in the face of danger. And this is what the book says. Truth be told, even with the slightest sour end of conversation, he felt better for having the sparring. It was strange how the members of Kelsier's crew could laugh and make light, even during the most terrible of situations. They had a way of making him forget about his problems. Perhaps that was a holdover from the survivor. Kelsier had reportedly insisted on laughing, no matter how bad the situation. It had been a form of rebellion to him. And again, it wasn't until I read this section by Sanderson that I started to think through the power of laughter like this. Now, medically, laughter is the best medicine. That's what everyone says. It has health benefits of stimulating organs, of activating your, I think it relieves your stress response. It soothes tension. It improves your immune system. It relieves pain. It increases personal satisfaction. And the obvious, it just improves your mood. But I found it really interesting that I just keep encountering this idea in literature, just all kind of coalesced into this one moment. This isn't just laughing for laughing's sake. This seems like purposeful laughter, to break a spell, to defeat fear, and then to rebel against evil forces in Kelsier's case. And it just has me wondering, does it really work? And I have to be honest here, I don't really understand the full benefits of human laughter in human psychology. But there is something literarily that all 3 of these instances have that I think sheds light on human psychology. But this is one of those essays where I think I just really want to hear from you because I'm so out of my league here because I don't really know this stuff that well. When you think of laughter in stories like these, or in any instances, break this down. What is actually happening here? Now, let's talk about it. For Harry Potter, I think it is actually true that if you laugh in the face of fear, then you will be able to defeat it. For Lord of the Rings, does a well-timed laugh dispel the person who has a hold over you? I think so. But then for Brandon Sanderson, is laughter essentially the best way that you can rebel? And then why? Can laughter really strike a chord with other people and propel them to rebel as well? Now, I think all of these questions are so interesting, and all these books that are raising these questions are so interesting. And I would love to hear more from you in the comments about any single one of them. To be honest, I really want your opinion on this. But here is my breakdown of them all. First, let's start with Harry Potter. Well, I actually kind of want to start with Monsters, Inc. and that the power that laughter has over fear in that story. But that plays into all these to some extent. Now, in Harry Potter, you have the bogart. And this bogart changes shapes into whatever you fear most. For Ron, it became a spider. For Harry, a Dementor. And for Hermione, it became a failed test, which, is a little concerning for Hermione, but I guess there's something deeper behind that. When the bogart comes out of the cupboard, the person who is in front of it simply needs to, in their mind, think of a way that you can make the thing in front of you comedic and funny. I think, honestly, this is one of the more brilliant ideas that Rowling has created. And I think this is one of the best instances in literature of teaching children how to overcome their fears. Because at the heart of it, all fear is a bit irrational. Well, maybe not all fear, but I think our fears in certain things tend to take some kind of irrational quality to them. And so the advice, particularly for children, to stand in front of their fear without any fear and turn it into something funny is genius. So good for kids to hear that. I think this works exceptionally well. And I think I've done this at certain times in my own life. But this takes seriously concerted effort in order to do this. It takes hard work to will your mind to something fearful to make it something funny. Because if I'm honest, most of the time our natural default state is just to run away from our fears. But laughter is a way to conquer our fears for Rowling. And I think the other two authors are kind of doing the same thing to a different extent. They're showing you that you can conquer your fear by laughing in the face of it. Now, for J.R.R. Tolkien, his example is probably the best written as far as the literary quality of the writing is concerned, as he doesn't really over-explain it. And I wish with everything that in me that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote an essay about laughter and on the power of laughter. Kind of reminds me of something that Mark Twain wrote when he said, "Against the assault of laughter, nothing can stand." Or even George R.R. Martin, when I was looking up some research in this, I found this quote that he said, "Laughter is poison to fear." Honestly, I have to admit too, I kind of feel very stretched to find good resources on this essay on laughter too. I feel like it's a massively understudied idea. Why exactly does laughter do this for us? It's a question I wish more scientists wrote on. It's honestly one that I think a lot of writers do talk about though, like literary people talk about this. Flannery O'Connor, the dead serious writer who is often known for piercing fiction, writes on it. Kurt Vonnegut writes on laughter as a coping mechanism for, some of the war and the terrible things that he saw in his life. David Foster Wallace talks about laughter and often mixes laughter and misery in his essays. Zadie Smith is known for her novels being heavy and serious, but often filled with these absolutely hilarious moments. And Jonathan Swift wrote perhaps the single greatest story of all time, or essay of all time, in A Modest Proposal, which is a suggestion that the solve to the orphan problem at the time was that they started to eat the children. It's a joke of an essay that I think is honestly one of the best ever written. Jokes and comedic writing just pierce through clouds of smoke. That is why even every once in a while on this channel I write one of those essays, and apparently I'm not that great at it, seeing as those are like my least popular and least liked videos on the channel. But I think not everything in life has to be serious. And I think according to these authors and these people in these novels who are facing very serious problems, I think the solution to that isn't to face it seriously, but to laugh in the face of it. And there's something behind that I just don't know yet. And I don't know if I will ever know. It just seems to both disarm you and the other person. It kind of like levels the playing field. It gives you confidence because look at the story with Gandalf again. Saruman has the whole room in the palm of his hand, and one single laugh from Gandalf breaks the spell for everyone. One of the most powerful people in Middle-earth at the height of his power is broken by a single laugh. Not magical, just a laugh. It honestly makes me want to implement this in my life more often. You know, if you have a bad boss, laugh at something they did when they do it and they're dead serious about it and they're trying to, intimidate someone. Is your spouse really angry at you? Do not laugh in their face. But a well-timed joke can really break the tension in one small little moment. For this, I think the same thing is kind of true for friends. If there is I ever have those moments when you're sitting in a classroom and you just cannot break the silence or look at your friend because you know that if you both glance at glance at each other, you die of laughter and the teacher would be furious. I think there's just something in that, in human connection, or maybe just in the desire to enjoy life and have happiness in it. But with these novelists, they are using laughter as a way to dispel and face your fears and to defeat the stronger forces that are opposed to you. For Kelsier in Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn and his work, his laughter was much more for himself. I don't know, actually, I think his laughter was as much for himself as it was for other people. I think really it was himself proving that this wasn't something to be feared. So he laughed and he smiled all the time, proving in his own mind a thing that I actually was annoyed at in the first book when he just kept on laughing and smiling. But he's doing this to prove to himself that he doesn't have to be afraid of this. And I think this laughter helped other people as well, in that if they see Kelsier laughing at the Lord Ruler, maybe they're a little less intimidated by him. If it moves the pendulum even an inch in the other direction, then I think it's worth it. Because I think especially in the Mistborn book, there is a huge theme of how the idea of living in fear is not a worthwhile life to live. And I think there are some people so beaten down that it's the only life they know how to live. And Kelsier laughing in the face of fear is rebellion against the fear that is being cast over them and the subservience that they are in. It is a rebellion against the forces that want to keep them down. I really wish more psychologists and neuroscientists would study laughter. I feel like I don't have any of the other side of the argument here. I have the idea that laughter is powerful, but I don't really have the why behind it. But to be honest, sometimes I think that isn't all that important. That we don't really always need to know why. I think what is important is that laughter is being used to conquer fear and how that is legitimately useful. The same thing in that laughter can break a spell that a person has over you, and in Kelsier's case, that laughing can cause a rebellion and still rebellion within the hearts of the oppressed. I think that is sometimes just good enough to know that it's doing those things. We don't always need to know the whys. Now, there's an episode of Bluey that I love. And side note, I once did a whole entire podcast dissecting the entire first season of Bluey. So fun. But I think it's the greatest show that's ever been made, and I will die on that hill. Show me in the comments if you will die on that hill with me. All you moms and dads out there, pretty much. But there's an episode I particularly love called The Beach. It's a really cute episode. And in it, the mom is far down the beach going for a walk, and Bluey just tries to catch up with her. And the whole episode is kind of just her adventures of going down the beach. But in the episode, the beginning of the episode, Mom says, "I'm going for a walk down the beach." And Bluey asks, "Why do you like walking by yourself?" Mom says, "Not sure actually. I just do." And sometimes that answer is really all we need. Laughter works. I'm not really sure why, but it just does. But also, if you know why, please tell me in the comments below, please. I want to know more of the psychology behind this. Also, link any good essays that you found on this or that you know on laughter, or just funny essays. Make sure you like the video also, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.